Hello, guys and dolls. Welcome back to Conversations with Xalea. I'm your host, Xalea Lorraine. When people think of horrible celebrity dads, one Joseph Jackson is the name that comes to mind. There have been debates within the MJ fan community and beyond in regards to whether his parenting was strict or flat out abusive. Regardless of what you may think of Joe and his parenting, you can't deny there are way worse celebrity dads than him, which is the discussion of today's video. Considering the mature topic of at hand, which will involve abuse, essay, and all abandonment and all that, viewer discretion is advised. So let's jump right into it. Number six on the list is Troy Austin, the biological father of Louis Tomlinson. Louis Tomlinson, for those wondering, is a British singer formerly of One Direction who also has some familial drama. More specifically, with Troy Austin abandoned Louis and his late mother Joanna when he was a baby. Though Louis was raised and adopted by his future stepfather, where he got his last name Tomlinson from. 2 decades later, Louis hits it big as one fifth of One Direction, and Troy's young daughter Georgia is a big fan of the group. Seeing that his daughter Georgia was a big One Direction fan, this loser took advantage of his daughter's fanhood to get closer to Louis. Yes, he used his own daughter to get closer to the son he abandoned alongside his mother as a baby, which, like, the audacity. When he failed to reconnect with Louis, he sold stories to the tabloids like the scoundrel that he is. Number five is Alfred Lennon. Alfred, like the last father Troy on this list, abandoned his spouse Julia and John, their son, together during the early 1940s. Alfred wouldn't meet John again till the mid 60s, where John was very successful as a member of the Beatles. And even when reconciling with his son, he tried to capitalize off being the father of John Lennon by recording a song that John eventually had removed from the radio. Eventually, John severed ties with Alfred, only communicated with him sparingly for a few years before his passing in the 70s. Do you get an idea just how much of an effect Alfred's deadbeat nature had on John? John wound up abandoning his own child, Julian, to pretty much for Yoko Ono, essentially only developing a relationship with him thanks to his girlfriend May Ping. But let's move on. Number four is Murray Wilson. For those of a younger generation that aren't familiar with the Beach Boys were a 1960s pop boy band that started out recording cheesy surf music songs before eventually maturing and peaking with Pet Sounds. The band was managed by Murray, the father of Dennis, Carl, and the late Brian Wilson, rest in peace. Various accounts have revealed how Murray was physically and emotionally abusive towards his sons, even allegedly harming Brian with a 2x4, causing his deafness in one ear. Not only was he abusive, he was also your typical dark manager narc dad that took credit for his son's genius and sold his son's publishing behind Brian's back. Brian, at this point, was dealing with the mental issues that would pretty much affect his career and livelihood for a few decades, to the point he had a doctor trying to control his life. Like, don't believe me, just go watch Love and Peace, the Brian Wilson biopic. It's a good movie, by the way. Murray's mistreatment of his kids affected him very badly, seeing how Dennis and Brian dealt with personal issues and mental illness as a result of their upbringing. Now, father number three is Dennis Hernandez. Dennis is the father of a certain Aaron Hernandez, and looking at his upbringing, no wonder why Aaron turned out badly the way he did. Dennis was a abusive drug addict who subjected Aaron and his brother DJ to horrific abuse and was also in and out of jail for drugs. When Aaron got involved in sports, he often made homophobic remarks towards Aaron if he walked or acted a certain way physically. Despite Dennis Sr.'s passing a few years before Aaron's fame and infamy, his horrid parenting have impacted his sons in the worst way possible. seeing that one turned out to be a crash out, and then the other one, who was seemingly on a good path, is now getting in trouble. The last two fathers in this list are the worst of the worst, and the ones to make your blood boil when you read their stories. The next father to discuss is Joseph Barzi. Joseph's story is a dark tale of the American dream. An immigrant from Hungary who fled to America to escape the Hungarian Revolution, he married his first wife and had two children, a son and a daughter with her. But things weren't all that sweet, as he was abusive towards his wife and the children, which led to them splitting up. Joseph eventually remarried to a fellow Hungarian named Maria, and they had a daughter named Judith, who became a notable child actress in the 1980s. Sadly, he continued his abusive behavior towards Maria and Judith, which affected her so badly she started plucking out her eyelashes. Then, this waste of life does the unthinkable. He annihilates his family and then unalives himself and set the house on fire. This POS literally abused his second family and then unalives them and himself just as they were going to escape them. Judith Marcy is one of the biggest what ifs of movie history, and we'll never know how her career would have gone if it wasn't for her evil sperm donor. And last but not least, numero uno goes to the worst celebrity dad, in my honest opinion, Robert DeBarge Sr. To give you an idea just how bad this a-hole's abuse towards his family was, he tainted his family tree with generational cycle and substance abuse. Sorry about that noise. Robert Robert DeBarge, a white military soldier, got involved with Erling, a black woman raised in the church, and wiped her up. Before they got married, and even with their relationship was pretty much a case of mistaken identity, since the Robert that Erling spoke to was a black officer, but when she tried to contact him, she wound up contacting Robert DeBarge. But But okay, moving on. Before they got married, Annalene got in contact with her future mother-in-law, who apparently trying to warn her about Robert, who is from Cicero, Illinois, by the way. And anyone familiar with Cicero, Illinois, should be aware of its very dark history and racism in the past. It was abusive towards some of his relatives before meeting Annalene, but Annalene thought Mrs. DeBarge was expressing disapproval of their union. Remember, this is 1950s America, where blacks were second-class citizens, and interracial mixing was a big no-no at that time period. It wasn't until Loving versus Virginia where interracial couplings became more accepted. When Robert and Arlene got married, Robert started his abuse of Arlene, controlling what she wore and keeping her pregnant, and then he moved on to abusing their children. Since I will not get into graphic detail, I will state the eldest children, like Bunny and Bobby, received the worst of the abuse. The trauma of their abuse led to the DeBarge children's descent into drugs, self-destruction, and crime. Worst of all, Bobby and Tommy died as a result of health problems, AIDS and kidney failure, respectively, stemming from their drug addiction brought on by their traumatic upbringing. If it weren't for Robert and Arlene being trash parents, the DeBarges could have been bigger than they should have. And that, my friends, is the worst celebrity dads worse than Joe Jackson. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any other celebrity dads that aren't on this list, be sure to add them in the comment section. Until we meet again, bye bye, achimais.